And spawning in the top left position, ladies and gents, as the purple Protoss player. Currently 1-0 down. Can he draw the series level? Representing Team Property, we have StarNan. I wish I could read Swedish, but I can't right now. So I'm pretty sure that says, are you sure Zerg isn't imbalanced? And sort of says, well, you know, at the start of the game I've got a 2k mineral bank, but don't tell anyone about these hacks. Gas isn't required. I'm sure that's totally the accurate translation there. Guys, in the bottom right-hand corner, we have Sort of spawning as the blue Zerg player. Currently 1 game up. I believe they were just talking about what happened in that previous game. 2-2 melee. Hive, I suspect Hive on the way would not be an unsensible translation of what's going on there. So that looked like a pretty convincing endgame there, to be honest, from Sort of. Initially, the Zerglings and the Roaches, guys, if you were watching the previous game, you have to be honest here and say, well, they weren't 100% convincing, because they were poking and prodding, but at no point they could ever get into the Sentries and the Stalkers. But StarNan never really pressed the advantage and tried to kill them off. Sort of recognized that he can't take the army, and then he just sort of moved back and waited. And I think that was a pretty slick move by him there, because it meant that he just had this small army. Yes, it could get crushed by the Protoss army at any instant, but as long as StarNan wasn't forcing him to engage with that army, then, frankly, it's actually not that much skin off his back, because he can just keep that army there and try and force the response from StarNan while he got busy teching up to those Mutalisks. And I think that's a big reason why he was able to get up to something like 40 Mutalisks so quickly. Imagine if he had to put a decent amount of his gas, for example, into more Roaches earlier on because StarNan was pressing in. He wouldn't have been able to make as many Mutas. He would have had to get more units out quickly, and we could have seen a different game dynamic. So I wonder if we're going to see a more aggressive Game 2 coming out of here from StarNan. We have a little bit of a scout out just to spot exactly where the Overlord is. A pylon is going to go down, so that's going to signal to Sort of that it, once again, is going to be an early expansion out of our Protoss player. But this time, we've got the Gateway and then the Cybernetics Core immediately starting up. So this Overlord's going to want to see that information. He wants to, basically wants to make sure, okay, no Forge, no Nexus, and he'll be able to deduce that it is in fact going to be a gateway. The first Stalker is going to come out now, and that's why this Overlord is on the right-hand side of the base. He wants to be able to run away from the Stalker quickly so that Sort of does not lose that early Overlord. And now we have a Probe Scout coming in to the main base of Sort of. And Sort of's actually gone 3 hatch at the moment before his pool even completes. You take a look, he's being very greedy at the moment, and StarNan, well, he might be able to get away with it. Let's see if the 3rd hatchery is immediately spotted. It looks like StarNan is going that way, so he's going, well, hang on a sec. This pool's pretty late. Have you actually got another hatch on the way? Oh my goodness, yes you have. All right. So let's see if this forces StarNan into that more aggressive position that we were talking about having him go into at the end of game number 1. And if he'll be able to take this series back up to level pegging. We've got the Nexus down now. Things he could do from this position, well, quick start getting Oracle is definitely one. I was going to suggest he can also, it's also not out of the ordinary, for example, to go for super quick, massive gateway all-ins as well, to try and pick apart as many of these bases as possible early on. He's trying to put down, wow, a pylon very quickly indeed, and actually forcing a couple Lings to go down there. Pretty nicely played so far. Is he going to let this pylon complete? To be honest, at this rate, I think he might. A single Zealot actually causing so much havoc over here at the natural expansion. He's saying, look, mate, I know you've got absolutely no units early on, so why don't I just do as much damage as humanly possible? I mean, where are the queens in this position? Where are they? We've got one in the main base, and frankly, she's nowhere close to joining in the action right now. There she is onto the creep, and it looks like finally we're going to have to see this move back a little bit. But are we going to have more units being warped in at this pylon? I don't think we're going to see that anytime soon. We've got, unfortunately, the warp-in mechanic isn't completely done yet. The Zealot is going to go down, but at the cost of quite a decent number of Zerglings. If you look at the resources lost at the moment, it's actually more than twice as much, although that'll change with the loss of this pylon, in favor of StarNan right now, which is pretty cool. And a lot of Lings were actually forced in that engagement as well. So those are Lings that Sort of would have preferred to be drones. And as a result, if you take a look at the bottom of your screens here, we can see it's 30 workers versus 33 right now. That's going to be a pretty decent position, to be honest, for StarNan, because he's managed to limit his Zerg opponent to not very many workers, and now he has to try... Ooh, dear, slightly late on the force field. Is it going to be okay on their counter-attack here? These Zerglings, well, gonna have to pull a couple of probes to kill that off. That sentry was just a little bit lazy ladies and gentlemen, to be perfectly honest with you. The probes now being pulled to try and plug the gap, and a couple of them are going to go down. It looks like a couple of Lings are also going to get into the main base for a full scout. So, unfortunately, not the best way to handle the small little counterattack there. And, one more probe going down as well means 6-2 workers killed, and all of a sudden, anything that sort of lost economically in that last push out from StarNan has now been, frankly, has now been rectified. And StarNan's going to be kicking himself over that, because if he got that force field down, he could argue that he has, at least for now, an economic edge until he gets to a point where he can try and take out this third base. Because at the end of the day, 3 hatch before pool, 3 hatcheries with queens, with injects, you're going to be able to get a lot of drones very quickly. So you want to turn your temporary economic advantage into a very, very quick time to try and shut that down. And you know what? I'm not sure he has a temporary economic advantage anymore, and I think SortOf is going to be able just to keep going up. But we have another dynamic in this game right now, and it's this Phoenix and the others that are on the map. We are slowly killing off overlords right now, and that's actually been supply blocking SortOf to Kingdom Come. So we're trying to stop the development of the Zerg army as much as possible. We'll see if that's going to be able to be done here. We've got the +1 interesting air attacks coming up from the Cybernetics Core as well. So we're really looking to go heavy perhaps later on into the air upgrades. And we've got the Roach War now in response from SortOf. So wanting to make sure he's got that ground force to be able to deal with this throughout this game. There are the double Evo chambers. It's at the 9-minute 30 mark, so there's upgrades, I guess mainly due to, of course, that early economic greed there. Going to come a little bit later than usual. And we've got a bunch of Phoenixes now moving into the third base location. There is a Spore Crawler here already. He has to be a little bit careful. +1 attack is going to be done shortly, at which point he might want to start thinking about lifting and killing off queens. I'm not sure he wants to do it right now, because it's not actually finished yet, but it looks like he's just going to go for it. 1 queen goes down. Is the second one going to be able to go down as well? It looks like it, lifting all 3 of them, actually, just to prevent them from shooting, if nothing else. And it looks like the Spore Crawler is going to mean one of these Phoenixes die, but it does mean that 2 queens go down, and that's a pretty significant pick-off there at this stage in the game. 11 roaches are now being produced, by the way, from SortOf, so these Zealots are not going to be able to be that effective, and I don't think these Phoenixes can lift all 11 roaches. That would be quite impressive indeed. Another Phoenix coming in. Good transfuse there, preventing that queen from being immediately killed off, but there are just too many Phoenixes. The DPS, especially with that +1, is quite large. A Mothership Core coming in with the action as well. Where are the rest of the roaches? There they are. They would have been able just to hold this off comfortably if they were all together, but they weren't all together. Zealots finally starting to go down here, and the Phoenixes currently reign supreme. This finally gets picked off. Number of workers killed 6-5 at the moment, so not a ridiculous amount just yet. The Spore Crawler still basically ruling the skies. And microing the Phoenixes now to prevent too many of them going down, and trying to pick off as many Overlords as possible right now. Doing a pretty good job of it so far, I have to say. They might even come around the other side and try and pick a couple more up, because these 2, I think, are very, very vulnerable. And, another Queen going down, so SortOf does not want that. He needs to keep the Queen closer to the Spore Crawlers. I think the Spore Crawler positioning could be slightly further to the south, perhaps, in this particular style of engagement. And he's basically just building Overlords right now, guys. These Phoenixes are absolutely wreaking havoc. Look at how many are coming out. He is not stopping, and he's going to be going into a robotics bay behind this. Yes, a Phoenix or 2 goes down, but the number of Overlords killed in this game is insane. This is a great style coming out of here from StarNan. He's not stopping. He's got the robotics facility pumping out that Immortal, but he's going to be switching over into Colossus production very, very soon indeed, and this excites me just a little bit. SortOf saying, well, okay, I've lost quite a lot there. You've got a lot of Phoenixes. This is really annoying. How about I go up to Infestors and see what you do there? And the thing I like about this strategy from SortOf is he's saying, well, you're going to be able to pick off my queens. Yes, you've got air superiority. It's really annoying. But at the same time, you can't really win the game just by having the Phoenixes. You need an army on the ground as well, and for that reason I'm just going to go ahead and take a 4th base. These Phoenixes are going to fly straight past. They can't lift a hatchery. They're not going to be able to win this game like that. So he knows that this base is going down, and he also knows he has to try and pick off units elsewhere. But with queens and infestors on the way, he needs to be careful where he flies those Phoenixes. Has he spotted them yet? He hasn't. So if he accidentally commands them towards the natural expansion location, he might just do that. He needs to be so careful. Good reactions, and StarNan is able to keep those Phoenixes away. Now, in other news, the Spire has started, by the way, so we could be seeing a corrupted production a little bit later on. There we go. That's the ground army that we needed, really, to get the third base cancelled. Just some Zealots and those 2 Immortals popping in to try and engage there. Decent fungal growth on a bunch of those Phoenixes. We'll be able to kill off a bunch of them, and I think that's going to be enough to force a recall from StarNan there. He moves back into the natural expansion right now. And, well, I'm not sure how he's going to be feeling about that engagement. He manages to get the base cancelled, but he didn't actually kill too much of the army here, and I think in these Queens and Infestors, sort of, has a pretty decent answer to those early game Phoenixes. Are we potentially going to see a switch up into a couple of Void Rays, which would do fantastically against these armored units? These Roaches, for example, might be able to pick off... Maybe able to pick off a couple more of these as well. I don't know. The Roaches are definitely the backbone of this ground army at the moment, and if you've got the +1 air weapons anyway, then it's not too unrealistic to say that the synergies in your build do lean towards that Void Ray. Now, let's see how long it takes for StarNan to... Well, you can actually see the lings, so not that much of a surprise to spot that the back rocks are actually being attacked right now. Looks like the Mothership Core... Wow, really going to trigger the Photon Overcharge? I guess he can. Is this going to stop him? Well, that combined with the Phoenixes certainly will. He's just going to pick apart a couple of Roaches. I think he should be able to get 1, maybe 2 more if he wishes, but looking like he's opting to save that energy in this time. An Overseer popping in just in case any shenanigans decide to pop down, but nothing at this moment in time, and sort of like a good Zerg, is just going to be grabbing more and more bases here. So these Phoenixes continuing to fly around, but unlike earlier on in the game, since we saw the Infestors out on the field, they haven't really been very aggressive. I think that's fair to say at this point. He's been sort of skirting around the map right now. He hasn't been looking to try and pick off all that much, although he does manage to get that watchtower, which is great. But he's not going into bases and trying to do damage, and that's because the Spore Crawlers combined with the Queens and Infestors have kind of rendered these Phoenixes significantly less useful than they were before. Now, out in the open, in an open fight, if he picks up every Queen in the army, for example, gets a good segregation on the Lings and Roaches, that could be massive trouble for SortOf right now. But from an attacking point of view, it's just not really going his way. And wow, these Photon Cannons at the back here, really making sure the Lings can contribute, but unfortunately these Roaches should be able to. And I wonder if these Phoenixes are going to move by and try and kill off a couple of them. It doesn't look like it. We've got a couple of Sentries being warped in and a few Zealots. I mean, the Roaches could try and move up here. We'll find out. The ground army is actually quite out of position right now, but I don't think these Roaches are enough to do so much damage that it's insane. A couple of Zealots coming down. Oh, if he sneaks them into the main base, that could be very frustrating though. So let's see. Yep, he's got 3 Roaches. 3 Roach Rush, ladies and gentlemen, coming approximately 12 minutes late, but hey, who cares? Or even more than that, but a Warping of Zealots is going to be able to put an end to that. So, yes, the rocks are down. StarNan has to be very careful of that right now, but no real damage was done here, as we see a couple of Lings getting roasted by those lasers. And what have we got to counter the Colossi? Well, it looks like Ultralisk Infestor is going to be the way to go. Sort of saying, yeah, I know you're going to get a lot of DPS. I know this could be really scary. You've also got those High Templars on the way as well. But I've got units that basically don't care if you do damage to them. And an Ultralisk is really the ultimate Honey Badger unit. I mean, we see Roaches do it more often, but Ultralisks are just really, really good at that sort of thing. So, as SortOf continues to spread his creep through the map, now onto the high ground, actually, towards this base. This is a great position to be having, by the way. It looks like... Ooh, in fact, are we going to see creep spread a little bit too far? That creep trimmer is making it dangerously close. No, he's going to be able to do it. This pylon might not go down. No, it doesn't. This one will. And this has to be slightly concerning for StarNan, because he wants to be able to keep a hold of this base, but we now have problems over here. And look at this. Honey Badger Ultralisk, ladies and gentlemen, is going to be going to town on the natural expansion. These Lings are entirely unopposed. We've got the main battle coming down here, wanting to stop this base. Good fungal growth off immediately on the Phoenixes, but look at how much damage these Colossi are dishing out. But great transfuses on the Ultralisk mean they take absolutely forever to kill, and if the Colossi are just focusing Ultralisk all day long, it looks like the Zerg might be able to get a decent advantage here. Another Ultralisk goes down. Great fungal growth, sort of down to 129 supply versus 141 for StarNan, looking like he's got the better, definitely the better of that particular engagement. This Ultralisk finally dies in the natural expansion. This Nex is down to 350 hit points. But this is still a decent counter. I think every Infestor died, which is really the big blow. No, we've got 1 Infestor. Where are you, buddy? Let me take a look. There you are. One infest. So all the infestors died to the Phoenixes, which is great. Still got a couple of ultras, and I think these 3 ultras are basically tasked with taking apart this Nexus. I think they might be able to do just that. If they just honey badger it in right now. And a lot of the queens survive as well, so he's going to be able just to get that additional energy, going to be able to get a lot of transfuses for the next engagement, and we've got the Mutalisk switch coming in as well. So, a really difficult situation if you're a Protoss player right now, because you're like, well, what do I actually switch up into? This is really frustrating. This Zerg player is just doing me so much damage right now, and ooh, those Storms, you need to be careful he's not picking apart his own Stalkers there, and as more and more of these Mutas pop out now, in addition to the Infestors, I'm really worried that these Stalkers die, and all of a sudden, the rest of the army goes down to the Mutas. The Honey Badger Ultras are coming in. They managed to pick off the Nexus at this natural expansion, and look at how much damage they're doing. We need to see a response here, but the response seems to be a counterattack, and I'm really worried he's quite light on the Stalkers if the Mutas come home. The Mutas, though, have absolutely no interest in coming home right now. They're picking apart the 3rd base as well, and this is becoming do or die for StarNan. He's going to be able to get this base, and I don't even think we're going to see a cancel there, so there we go. He's got this base, he's moving into the natural, so he's trying to do damage as quickly as he can. But you know what? He's not going to have a Nexus to recall to in approximately 3, 2, 1, and there goes the main base for him. The Mutalisks, wow, picking apart this 4th base as well. This really is the last base, not just the last mining base, but the last Nexus here for StarNan. And he's going to be able to fly home, and I think he might be able to hold off. Maybe not at the natural, but definitely at the main base. I don't think this is going to be enough from StarNan. A couple of Lings in the back here. Oh god, you want to make sure that Infestor stays alive, that's for sure. And even if it's at the cost of all these Lings managing to pick off that Archon. And where are the Mutalisks? Are they coming back? There we go. They're moving back now towards the natural. The Infestation Pit and Roach Warner here. Yes, that's annoying, but this is also pretty much everything that StarNan has right now. He is down to 69 supply versus 159. He hasn't built his base. He's being revealed, but as quickly as he's being revealed, he's being surrounded and he's being picked off here. The Mutas are going to be able to win StarNan this game, and that means, sort of this game rather, and that means he is going to be going up 2-0 to win this round of 8 bracket. Sort of, ladies and gentlemen, moves on to the round of 4. Well then.